You might check and see if we need a little more anywhere, because I'm done here. What we've got to have left in the tray.
Captain Buzz Brizendine is getting his overnight fishing boat ready for the season. If everything works out well, the railings will be packed this summer.
We'll have people scattered around the rail here that we're just now finishing up. And this big box-shaped thing behind me here is the bait tank. And we would have between 50 and 100 scoops of live sardines primarily in the bait tank.
The Prowler is one of about 45 sport fishing boats working out of San Diego Bay. Yellowtail, barracuda, and bass are how anglers know that spring has arrived. But the fleet's books are usually balanced in the summer when the tuna are biting.
It's the bread and butter of this industry, and so the tuna season is absolute chaos here, but everyone's happy and either coming in or going out.
But fishing is not easy. The California Sport Fishing Association's Bob Fletcher says the ocean can be fickle. A temperature swing of a couple of degrees can push key sport fish out of range for local boats. The recession also hurts. Customers are scarce and fuel is expensive.
And there's been 4 or 5 boats that have already basically gone bankrupt here in San Diego. And if we have another bad year, it's going to be, there'll be more. And the MLPA has not helped.
MLPA is the Marine Life Protection Act. The measure puts large swaths of ocean off limits to anglers. One of those areas is just off the coast of La Jolla.
So there's the rocky intertidal, and around that point is rocky habitat and a huge kelp forest. And then as you come around here where the surfers are, this is a sandy beach that would have intertidal clams and things like that.
Russ Vetter works for the Southwest Marine Fisheries Services. His agency is charged with managing the nation's fishing stocks.
Mistakes that were made in the 50s and 60s and 70s, I think, are being corrected.
Vetter says the marine protected areas are part of a sweeping effort to keep stocks healthy. He says creating the marine reserves took more than a decade, but something had to be done.
And even the sport fishing community will tell you that while they may be selling trips to conventioneers and they may be catching some of the more abundant fish, it certainly wasn't like it was back in the 1950s and 60s.
And while fish management is a lot better, it's hardly perfect. Vetter says regulators struggle to make the right decisions, but sometimes that's all washed away by the California current.
We have these wild swings in temperature and El Nino and La Nina. So even when everything's done right, you can have a decrease in the population and then a few years later a sudden increase.
The conservationists and researchers hope the marine protected areas create breeding grounds that'll feed fishing stocks outside the reserves. Scripps Institution of Oceanography scientist Ed Parnell wants the kelp forest off the shore of La Jolla to look more like the big kelp tank in the Birch Aquarium.
There's lots of fish here, and a lot of them are really large compared to what we see out in the wild. And I'm hoping that within, the next 5 years that we'll start seeing some of these are kelp bass here, and sheephead, that we'll be seeing more of them, and we'll be seeing them in larger sizes.
Parnell says creating an environment where fish can get old and big helps those fish propagate. But marine reserves are different than their above-ground counterparts.
There's not a lot of support in terms of looking at how effective they are, or enforcing them, or even maintaining the markers for their edges and things like that.
Parnell worries there may still be fishing inside the reserve areas because it's tough to see the boundaries. He says the marine protected areas are still a work in progress and the impact is uncertain. The impact that Captain Buzz Brizendine wants to see is on his bottom line, MLPA or not. He's hoping to land 1,000 paying customers this season, enough to call 2012 a good year.